It's my honor and pleasure to be here with Professor Susannah Heschel, who is the Eli Black Professor and Chair of the Jewish Studies Program at Dartmouth College. Thanks for taking time to talk.
My pleasure.
So our first topic is what it was like for Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel to be your father. What was he like as a father growing up?
So I would say, first of all, that he was the kind of father you would expect from his writings. He really exemplified them. And what I mean by that is that he was extremely empathic and warm and understanding and sympathetic always. And I guess what I'm also struck by, I didn't realize it at the time, he was never moody. He was never withdrawn. And I remember being a little startled once when I grew up and I met somebody who seemed to me obviously upset. And I said to him, "What's wrong?" And he said, "Nothing." And I was struck by that because it would never happen with my father. For one thing, if he was upset about something, it was something about the world, some terrible thing had happened in the world. But about a minor thing, he would say it's Narschkeit and it's nothing. He was always very present. He was full of enthusiasm and energy and just radiated fun also. He would come home from his office and the apartment would light up.
What was Shabbat like in your house?
So Shabbat was, first of all, Friday morning. So things were, let me just say that my mother was a pianist and she loved to play the piano for hours every day. But on Friday, of course, it was a short day. So she would, after a while, stop playing in mid-morning, and we would go to the store and buy the groceries. And in those days, there was a bakery where you'd get the challah, and there was a butcher store for the chicken, a vegetable store for the... and nothing was wrapped in cellophane in those days either. So, and then we would go home, and she would start cooking. And then my father came home early from his office, of course, and he would wash up and get ready and change. And I remember as the afternoon was going by, things got a little more tense and nervous. My mother was not someone who enjoyed cooking, I have to say, and she wasn't very good at it either, I have to say. But my father would then come in the kitchen and say, things were getting a little nervous. Is it ready? Is the soup cooked yet? Is everything fit? And then finally, it was time. And everything had to be turned off, and we put the blech on the stove, and then we would go into the dining room and light the candles. And I remember once as a child telling my parents that I felt not only emotionally and spiritually changed in that moment, but even physically different. And we would then walk into the living room where we had windows that faced west over the Hudson River, and we would watch the sunset and just sit and talk in a very peaceful, quiet way. My parents didn't have guests that often, occasionally we would go to their friends. But my parents we didn't go to shul on Friday evening. We went Shabbos morning, and then we had lunch at home, and then my parents took a nap. And I had to be quiet. This was very difficult.
You were an only child?
I'm an only child.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And then, and then they would wake up, and my father would take a walk. And actually, when I was a child, Elie Wiesel used to come over almost every Shabbat afternoon.
Wow.
And he would go for a walk with my father in Riverside Park. And then they would come back and have tea, 4 o'clock tea. And sometimes my father would invite students from the seminary, and they would sit around the table and have tea and coffee cake. It used to be something called coffee cake. I don't think it exists anymore. And sometimes cheese and crackers. And they would talk about their parents and their studies and the future. And that was very lovely. My father would engage with each one individually. It was very nice. And then it was time to daven and to make Havdalah.
Yeah. So what do you miss most personally about him, being around physically?
So I miss his warmth. I miss his love. I miss the excitement that he would generate. I miss his humor, his laughter, his jokes, and the chance to talk to him and discuss so many things that I wish I could talk to him about. At the same time, sometimes I think I'm glad he's not around to see certain things, because it would hurt him very much. I remember when he learned about the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, how devastated he was by that. And there have been some terrible things since his death. But I miss introducing him to my friends. I want to cook for him. And I want to talk to him. I want to show him also that I've written books about people that he knew in Germany or as a student, or people that he knew of, people he had talked about when I was a little girl.
Outside of your relationship with him, what was it? What was it, and is it like to be his daughter in society or in the Jewish community?
So, what I appreciate is people write to me often.
Yeah.
I would say once or twice a week I get an email.
Yeah.
People tell me that they've read my father's books and how much
Yeah.
it means to them and how moved they are, and they just want to tell me. And I'm glad I'm here that they could tell me. They can't tell my father, but they can tell me, and I always write back.
Yeah.
And so that I find wonderful.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the inspiration he brings. You know, people write to me from Pakistan,
Right.
from Korea, from Turkey. It's remarkable that he's influenced so many different kinds of people.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful. And that would make me so happy. He would be so moved by that.
So what do you think his influence is still today? I mean, you talk about people writing and being inspired. I mean, in what way is his presence still felt and still moving things forward?
So I think that he is, first of all, a voice of conscience. And if we have a conscience, you know, we feel that he's supporting us. And supporting us also, I think, in other ways. For example, he was somebody who wanted us to think in complex terms and not be simple-minded. So he pushes us to think. People who read his work also feel that he's speaking to them.
Yeah.
There's something intimate and inspiring. And that's wonderful. They begin to understand what it means to pray, what Shabbat is all about. So many people have come to Shabbat because of his book on Shabbat. I think that's extraordinary.
Yeah. So I think my last question is, looking at the situation today, what do you think he would be most pained by? Looking at American society, looking at the Jewish community, and what do you think he would be most pleased with?
Well, you can imagine what would pain him. Vulgarity is something that pained him very much. He was very careful about his use of language. He studied language. He read beautifully. There was something for him, something religious about how we use language. So that would be one of many things. What the U.S. government does in my name, he used to say. How can I pray when the United States is dropping napalm on children? To pray and be silent on Vietnam, he said, is blasphemy. So that would upset him. I think it would upset him to see that Jews are opposed to other Jews, that there's so much enmity in the Jewish world. That would pain him very much. He's somebody who lost his mother and 3 of his sisters. And there was something about him. You as a Jew, you stick together. You help one another. You don't attack each other. So that would pain him, I'm sure. He was also someone who felt at home in every Jewish place. He gave that to me, and I give that to my children. Feel comfortable. There are different ways of being Jewish. All right. Let's admire, let's respect.
And how about pleased by? What do you think he'd be pleased with today?
I think he would be pleased that people, a lot of Jews now, are really davening. They don't go to the synagogue and sit back in the chair and let the rabbi and the chazan do the davening.
Right.
They're engaged, and they understand that that means something.
Yeah.
I think above all, that would be very important to him and please him.
How about on the side of expressing moral outrage? I mean,
synagogue life is transformed. Synagogues now have social action committees, for example.
Yeah.
They take a stand. And of course that would please him. That didn't exist in his day. So yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, keep up the terrific work you're doing and all of your scholarship and your inspiration to many. I'm grateful for this conversation with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.